What's going on, everybody? How are y'all doing? How are we doing? Hopefully, everybody's doing good. We are doing a little bit of a politics talk. Politics. We're talking Trump and Iran and all kinds of good stuff. Let's see here. Um, let's go. Yeah, so I tried doing live streaming earlier. I think something about my freaking what's it called? Like the chat messages weren't totally showing up, but um, yeah, we're doing a little bit of an overview on stuff that's happened. Uh, you know, Intelligence leaks relating to Iran, and sort of the main purpose of this stream is as we see the Trump administration continuing to put out information or intelligence. Um, One of the things that I want to be able to sort of be a little bit clear on is that, like, look, it's kind of weird because some people might be voting for us to like go to war. Some people might be voting for us to hopefully not do that. Just informed voters might be kind of seeing how Washington is performing right now and saying, like, look, I don't want Republicans or Democrats that are going to give me a incomplete or half-filled narrative or something like that. Hey, what's going on, Mr. Jimi Hendrix? Yes, I am. I too am from the United States. I too am from the U.S. Um, and yeah, doing well. Benjamin Alexander, very possible. Um, it'd be unlikely. Maybe Mars or something. You and I did that. We got to go at it. But yeah. So far, Pam Bondi might, who knows, and I would predict in the coming days, Pam Bondi is going to have a more active role, talking about conversations that maybe emerged from the NATO summit with U.S. partners around the world. Right now, primarily, DNI Gabbard has had some stuff to say. We also saw Pete Hegseth talking a lot. Um, and uh, and so that's sort of one of the things to sort of talk about. So right now I think there's like three like intelligence things that have been sort of released from the U.S. Or leaked. Obviously, they're trying to keep a lot of this stuff under a close wrap. Ducks, are you MAGA? I am not MAGA. I am not. I know that's not a YouTube favorite, but I'm trying to keep things sort of centrist and, feel free to ask questions. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, also, if you want to like and subscribe, cool. But one of the things is just if you're watching White House press briefings or wondering what's going on in the U.S., kind of wondering what Americans are making of some of this stuff, I'm trying to sort of spread some of those narratives. Thanks for whoever's smashing the. I do that too when I'm in chat. Obviously, I'm a small time creator, but like smashing the the like the little. It's kind of fun for chat or whatever. But yeah, so we have one report that I don't know how much veracity there is, that there are Israeli agents, maybe like a double agent within Iran or something, that was part of the team that was assessing the damage from Iran. There's also a report, probably from like CIA targeters or someone looking at like GPS satellites, probably multiple intel sources for this sort of coordinated, planned operation, after the United States flew out of frickin' wherever, Qatar, and bombed Iran. That the site, about the site not being destroyed. So that was an intelligence leak. That's an intelligence leak. Trump has vowed today. Trump has promised that whoever leaked that report is going to be prosecuted. And so making sense of that kind of stuff. And then there's one other report that's fairly recent that says Iran removed all the uranium from the site. So I'm going to start with that story. Mr. Abe's in chat. What's up? Abe's one of my buddies, so Abe gets a special shout out. But yeah, let's start with that story. And so this is just from sort of like an operations perspective. So Iran had two really Iran's three major assets going into prior to the strikes was that one, they had these underground locations. They all had secured power. It was reported these were all air-gapped facilities, so no internet going in and out. And so if you just kind of picture like, your country or, wherever, if you're in the US or your country announces we're doing this really cool big national initiative, you imagine that you probably have collaboration from like the entire government doing something like this. So that's number one, is that Iran had these air-gapped facilities underground. Two is Iran has a great education program. So Iran was feeding their nuclear program with mostly Iranian scientists, trained nuclear physicists, all this other stuff. And so you had the right people, you had the right infrastructure in place. And three is you had these facilities with international, whatever it's IEAE, kind of sounds like Farmer John, whatever it is, the International Nuclear Regulatory Agency, whatever it's called. You had already had this pre-existing relationship that, because uranium, it's maybe not exactly precise, but it's pretty much exactly precise that when you are refining uranium, if you put in, a certain amount, what you're going to get out of it, and what that product's going to be based on the equipment and the process you're putting it through. And so Iran had this regulatory setup. Is Israel's war more than America's war? I'll touch on that, Mr. Mark. And so, when you see the US striking these targets, these very complex state-level nuclear programs also had to be the case that they had contingency plans to remove the uranium. And this is sort of like a spy thriller, right? You probably had people, I don't know, maybe you can over dramatize it a little bit. But you can picture a lot of situations where you have to have a contingency plan, even if these are facilities that are set up for both processing as well as safe storage monitoring, as well as just, you have that sort of culture in a nuclear program where the right people that are supposed to know where things are, know where they're at. Those are all really important things. And so there is rumors out there that either aspects of the highly enriched or, just like enriched for uranium they want for either nuclear power or research, or the nuclear weapons, a weapons program, got out like you would have planned to do that in the first place. So, in terms of, so if we're talking about the three major papers, the three major sort of intelligence points or like press briefs that the White House has done, those are, this is probably the biggest of the three, is that what you might expect to have happened already happened. That's the biggest point. It's the biggest point. And so when you're talking about whether or not this is Israel's or the United States war, and you're listening to what people are telling you, you're listening to what people are asking you to believe, the thing that you might actually want to sort of trust or buy in or believe with something like this, is that, when you're talking about a state that has this research and power grade uranium, and probably some weapons grade, some like fissile material, something that is capable of sitting in the core of a nuclear weapon. And now all of this is in Plan B, C, D, E. It's all in this containment program. The U.S.'s interest in stopping any Iranian weapons program is now sort of working within that. It is not a powerful position, and so understand this. It's not a powerful position, but it would not be a silly question to ask if that is a clandestine offensive or defensive position where you have this material outside of the hands of all the other things we just talked about, right? If you're just joining in, go back and watch what we were talking about a second ago, or don't worry about it. Do hit like and subscribe. But when you had these nuclear facilities, right, scientists everywhere, you have measurement devices everywhere, you have international monitors, you have all this stuff that the US and most people in the world probably don't think Iran really needs or shouldn't have that much of. It should be very tightly controlled. And when you have a US bombing campaign, you get rid of all the good stuff, you get rid of all the stuff that's useful, and now you have this challenger problem that everything is in the hands of the country that thinks it's being attacked, because it is being attacked, right? And so, yeah, is that the US's problem? Well, the US versus Israel, the US has a huge priority in understanding what other countries' nuclear programs are like. Every nuclear power does. So, I'm sure, Donald Trump or, top security advisors have some form of line of communication about, how that sort of nuclear paradigm is going right now. It's always this sort of undercurrent. It's not really a voting issue. But you always have to sort of consider it. And for Israel and the United States, you do see like state media in Iran talking about destroying Israel or pushing politics that are perhaps harsh and lead into this sort of belief that there is an external offensive capability. From the Iranian perspective, you might say, well, the reason we have these sharp edges on the outside is because we're saying that we're done fighting. We already went to war with, like, if you want to know who Iran is, we went to war with Saddam Hussein. We went to war with some, hey, what's up, XF? I wish I had if you wanted to do debates, feel free to leave your thoughts. If I wish I had like a Discord or, call-in set up. I might do that some other time, but yeah. Yeah, and so, so if we just take that one thing that we've been talking about, right, and not to be too sort of big-brained, but we talk about all of Iran's nuclear material moving to this weapons program, this might be more threatening to a country like Israel than it is to the US. And this also means that Israel might have a stronger incentive for diplomacy. It might not. It might not. This is probably not the right sort of venue to get into all that stuff. This is probably not the right kind of, if anyone wants to hit like or subscribe, cool, no big deal. Gonna be doing more geopolitics and philosophy stuff sometime in the future too. Doesn't Israel have nukes? Yeah, Israel does. Israel does have nuclear weapons. Israel probably has, for a state of their size, they have at least a nuclear weapon, so they're a nuclear state. They also have a great signals program. So where this fits in the world is when you're considering what like different political leaders and military leaders might be talking about, sort of how advanced you can get in front of competitive threats. Specifically in the military context, Israel's very strong at that. Israel's, I haven't brushed up on like everything Israel has in a while. But yeah, Israel has a very powerful military, and for being a very small country, they would say, so what Israel might say is that, like, for a country that's been attempted to be invaded and attacked so many times, they're not that big. Iran is also very big and powerful too. Big and powerful. Let's see. Israel has never admitted to having nukes, never, but I'm sure they're a nuclear nation. Yeah, the US has it. Israel has it. Kind of at this point, yeah. If the US has it, Israel has it. Yeah. Philosophy. Yeah. I should do that some other time. Okay, so what I wanted to, just because we've got some people here listening to the politics stuff, I just want to, I'll try and rush through this other stuff and we'll see if we can get to a different topic. But yeah, no offense and stuff, but and I'm from Southwest United States, so hello to you. From yeah, Southwest United States, USA, all that good stuff. Yay. So the other two major intelligence leaks that, again, the point of the stream in the first place was that if you're listening to what politicians are telling you, if you want to be an informed voter and not be conspiratorial about politicians lying to you, but you want to be able to ask good questions, kind of filter out information that you might hear on the media. The other big story, very quickly, was that, yeah, Israel has agents inside of Iran that were part of the assessment team after the strikes. I forgot where this report, where this intel leak came from. This is one of those things that might not be that surprising. If anything, it's sort of a signal that maybe, at least in this small sense, relative to the U.S. and the West continuing a conflict or continuing aggression and competition against a nuclear program, a nuclear weapons program. This seems to be a signal that obviously is going to continue. It's not entirely clear. You know, I can't really, maybe someone here is smarter than me, but like I can't really piece together why someone would necessarily leak that. You know, if Iran didn't catch the people, so this seems like some like weird sort of like the diplomacy that should have been happening before the United States and Israel got into war. This seems like some offshoot of that to me, but I could be wrong. I'm always optimistic. Yeah, I'm always really hopeful that we're just gonna have like nice people that come out and, you know, say, hey, look, I love what you've done, but you guys understand, you know, you can come look at my stuff a little bit, as much as you can see, and as much as we love each other, you know, we should have a serious conversation about the stuff that we don't like the other person doing, and we should have a diplomatic talk around that stuff. Let's do it, guys. Let's go. But that might be too optimistic. What do you think about Algeria? I don't know about Algeria. Are you a Jew or a Christian? I am neither a Jew nor a Christian. Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm secular. And so let's see, what else do we have? So the main story that was leaked was that there's not that much damage to the nuclear facilities, and this is like a serious sort of political turning point for Donald Trump. You know, it's very rare to see a president come out and give a very big, bold speech with so many of his advisors around him. And this is exactly what we saw from the White House. We saw Donald Trump come out to the center of the stage. He had the microphone in front of him, and behind him he had Pete Hegseth, he had Pamela Bondi, I think. He had DNI Tulsi Gabbard, and who else was it? Was it Marco Rubio? And he announced that the U.S. had succeeded. The U.S. had succeeded, and these facilities were destroyed. And if you have been following Donald Trump, one of the things that Donald Trump has recently made a little more clear, people have begun noticing that Donald Trump has been telling these sort of stories about telling truths, about you know, the way he sees politics. Is it overly simplified? Are people almost like surpassing the level at which he's communicating? And so when he says something after this surprise attack, which appears like it's introducing an act of war, and you have Donald Trump then now telling us that we are that after he tells us the facilities are destroyed, we have to reconcile the fact that actually it turns out that your advisors, your intelligence is telling us that wasn't true. So you already lied once. And so is this incompetence? Should we actually be celebrating? What do we actually believe? This is so chaotic. Uh, hello from Serbia. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah. And this is the crazy thing. It's like, if I'm a voter and like Donald Trump, and it's like, look, I don't just want one question answered. I want to be able to ask a question and then another question. I don't want to hear that we're at war and then we're at war. I don't want to hear that we're the good guys and then we're the good guys. If I know that that isn't the way the world works, if I know that people in my country are smart enough that Americans don't need to feel like the good guys to wake up and go to work. You don't need to feel like the good guys to whatever, to pay your taxes at the end of the year, right? In the United States, we say death and taxes are the two certain things. We try. We're trying at least. So if you're looking for an actual dialogue or almost like dialectic process through the presidency, where does Donald Trump get off telling American people lies? That's an interesting way to look at it. Someone in chat said they wanted to hear me talk about philosophy. And so if we talk a little bit about like either like Slavoj or this Hegelian sort of historical dialectic, where we're almost constructing this history, shouldn't it be important that we're able to use our best epistemic, our best metaphysical view when we're talking about who we can trust and who we can believe, the sort of relationships that those people go out and form, and what that means about like optionality, about how other people see our country. I should think that over this 4 years of Trump's term, I don't need to think about all the nasty and rude things he already said. I don't need to think about all the times he lied to people. I would instead I want to think and talk about something that's true, that's on the table, and that I believe that the people on his team who are now saying the same exact thing are telling me the same thing because they believe it. They truly believe it. They truly believe it. And so, yeah, it's sort of misappropriating Hegel, because Hegel wants us to, in reality, what Hegel is asking us to do is being able to take this almost like being able to take our ordinary perception of the world and find sort of the most important things that are driving history forward. What's the actual thing that is pushing and pulling, that's creating that sort of propulsion? And like in the United States, it's like it's always been technology, it's been capitalism, it's been these really big things that Americans wake up, they have their cup of coffee, and people all around the world wake up and have their cup of coffee and they want to go design something new or discover something or go make money. And so for Donald Trump's presidency, it seems very odd when you have this president who wants to win a Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know, did he already do that? Who wanted to be the president of peace, who in his first term did nothing to create diplomatic conditions, more fair conditions for Iran to get the stuff done that they needed, even after they hired a reformer. So like Donald Trump, maybe we don't support this oppressive regime that abuses women's rights, that it has a high level of corruption, and that still thinks that the majority of their economy can come from oil and exporting and selling this good that the state controls. The state basically bids these contracts out to whoever. Maybe we don't support that in the United States, but don't you owe me an explanation when they hire someone that is supporting more free speech, free assembly, when you're hiring someone democratically, electing someone, why is it still the case that Iran saw it as so beneficial? Like, can you explain why Iran wanted to get into a war with Israel, even after what seems like all this political momentum? So is this, if they're willing to go to war with Israel, are they willing to go to war with us? Maybe there's not a good way out of it. Yo, Liver King, I thought you were in jail. Trump 2028. All right, we got at least one fascist in chat. Let's go, bro. No, don't be mean to anyone in chat, but like, yeah, I heard that Liver King story. I don't know if you guys heard that. I can talk about Liver King a little bit. How many people here? There's like 40 people here. Do hit like and subscribe. And I'm going to take a quick political break. Let's talk about Liver King. I shouldn't be smiling, dude. I feel bad, but so Liver King was like this fitness influencer who, based on the name, he ate like a carnivore diet. Like, bro, he ate uh like freaking like all kinds of like crazy meat and stuff. He ate like obviously liver and stuff like this, raw steak. And I was so impressed. The first time I saw Liver King, I was so impressed because of the volume he was doing and how natural it is. Now, if you guys look at me, maybe I look like a little bit of a crazy person, but one of the things I do got is I have a very natural workout routine. You can see here when I'm streaming, I have my these 2-pound weights. I'm not telling you, young folks, go ahead and lift, get a little bit of the calcium and stuff in the bones. But when you get to be my age, I'm 35, by the way. I'm a boomer, I'm a doomer, all kinds of bad things. When you get to be my age, it's not bad to be able to just like, let the shoulders relax, don't go up. And so I run outside a lot, right? I look horrible. I swear, I look horrible. But yeah, so I'm gonna tell. So the duck story is that I run outside. I eat like a whole food natural diet. I don't eat a ton of calories. I don't like I don't every day do like 200 grams of protein. Like I'd have to really work to get into a routine like Liver King does. But bro, like he seems like he mentally crashed out a little bit. I don't know if it's because of diet, because it's being a celebrity. I don't know if it's empathetic even to ask like what happened. But this guy who, had millions of people watching him, who had this seemingly like miracle happy carnivore, natural, spend time outside, do functional fitness and stuff like this, ended up going online and I'll talk about this. He had pew-pews, he had firearms present in some of these videos and threatened Joe Rogan. So like the biggest podcaster in the United States. He threatened Joe Rogan, a guy who has a contract with like Universal or freaking Spotify or something, whatever. And he threatened John Bravo and freaking Derek from More Plates, More Dates. It's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. But yeah. And so, okay, so this is the first thing which is gonna suck for that guy, is that okay, cops in the United States are kind of cool sometimes. Police officers, they're kind of cool sometimes, right? Like they understand that they get called to hundreds of things, and if anyone's ever gonna like get hurt or did something illegal, you're gonna get arrested, right? That's what their job is. But they also understand if you get 100 phone calls, 5 or 10 of them are people who did or said or felt a stupid way and did something incredibly stupid. But this doesn't look like it's going to be that situation. This is partially why I'm not 2A. Someone was asking me if I was MAGA earlier. I'm not MAGA. I'm not 2A. I know I look like it. Who? Duck. Are you in the military? No, I'm not. I don't know anything about the military. No, sir. This is all vegan body right there. Oh, vegan, let's go. All right. No, but yeah. But this guy, so when Liver King gets frickin', what's it called? When he goes to his arraignment and stuff like this, it is going to be very early in the legal process and maybe throughout, where people are going to look and see that, look, he did make threats against people. They're on the internet. They're very public. And it also appeared he already had in his possession, he had the tools to carry out those threats. Hey, what's up? Oxcat. OXCatXO, one of my friends. It's good to see you. Good to see you, Miss Cat. Yeah, and we're talking Liver King right now. We're doing Liver King. Yeah, and so for Liver King, it's going to suck a little bit because they're going to see that not only did he do something illegal, but he did it illegal in a way that makes it really easy to believe, very hard to believe that he was just, he had a bad day or something. Um, it looks like he was already taking away someone's rights or liberties, which is what a crime is in the US. And it looked like he was planning on possibly doing more, which was the nature of his crime. The nature of his crime. And so where it got illegal, I think for Liver King, like I understand the online beef stuff quite a bit. I understand. I understand. I understand the online beef stuff. I understand that if you're a fitness creator and you want to get into some of this stuff, you want to disagree with people. You might feel angry. You might feel like too much of a good thing is still not good enough. You can't just go on John Bravo's or frickin' Derek's podcast. You can't go to someone else's podcast. You can't do any of that stuff. It's so mean, right? That's so mean. Like, it's so mean to say, but that guy got screwed, right? He's gonna get screwed. Yeah. Yeah, Juliet Novakowski says when he threatened violence, it became serious, especially coming to his house or work or whatever. Yeah, I mean, he filmed the heck out of it for sure. He filmed the heck out of it. It's really bad. Yeah, and so this is weird because there on social media there's at least like 3 or 4 videos. I don't know if there's text messages. I don't know if there's text messages. I don't know if there is videos that haven't surfaced on social media. I don't know if there's like private Instagram DMs or whatever it was. I don't know any of that stuff, right? And but he screwed up because he threatened violence, and he to me like, okay, hello duck, like a little bit actually like autistic, a little neurodivergent. Like, you screwed up because you had a freaking gun you had a pew pew in the video, dude. You had a pew pew in the video. You can't do that, dude. You can't do that. If anyone here wants to press like or subscribe, I think I'm supposed to ask that stuff too, but I think I'm supposed to ask that stuff as well. Like and subscribe. You're mental. I'm just picturing bro in chat saying, I don't know if you're talking to me and saying I'm mental, but if you are, I'm just picturing you as like a really suave, cool British dude. You're absolutely mental, bro. In America, everyone has an American accent in America for the most part. And so I love accents. I'm really bad at them. I can do Yahoo! That's basically all I got. I can do that one. Your buddy duck. Your buddy duck. Your buddy duck doesn't take no scruff from nobody. Nobody, no nothing. I have family from Chicago. My family's from Chicago, so yeah. I was the black sheep of my family. I don't know how that would come up. Maybe with the Liver King stuff, but like, I could picture people in my family. During times of very high stress. Maybe they're doing high performance stuff at the same time, stress and high performance. I could picture that in the most severe case or whatever it is, they are able to, they could get out of line and say something that really no one else should have heard. No one should have heard that in the first place. In this case, maybe like, thank goodness people did hear Liver King. Hopefully everything turns out. I think we're supposed to say he gets the support and help he needs, which he probably should have been doing over the last couple months, but here we are. Yeah, I don't know. I'm cool as a cucumber, baby. I'm cool. I'm not overconfident. When I'm under pressure and stressed, I still don't know. I don't have a freaking gun, and I don't post stupid shit on social media. So I know what I talk about. I post videos talking about Iran and Trump and political science and theory and sociology, history, all that kind of stuff. That's what I try and do. Definitely not perfect. Definitely don't like talking about myself all that much, but the Liver King fiasco. Yeah. Do your best British accent. Leaf, let's see. Piggly Wiggly with a side of crow. Piggly Wiggly with a side of crow then, mate. In it something. In it something. Little Piggly Wiggly. You gotta go to bed, Juliet. If the sun's coming up, if you're as insomniac as I am. As insomniac as I am. Yeah. So yeah, the moral of the story for Liver King is whatever. I know lots of people are watching the guy, probably got a lot of love for him and stuff like that. If you are making the choice to work out, do these intense natural routines, just because it's natural, just because it's high or low calorie doesn't mean you don't have that responsibility still. You know, maybe my 2-pound weights and my Buddhist t-shirt or whatever. I'm a very Zen guy. This is my, I'd rather do this and just get like a little strain, nothing too crazy on my ligaments and stuff. I can just turn my wrists and just a little bit of this stuff. Make sure my shoulders are relaxed while I'm doing this. This kind of stuff. This is the real Liver King right here, right? So liver. So our liver, and just in case you don't know, it's not that crazy. Yeah, define natural, right? That's the joke. That's the joke. Natural steroid, AR-15, AR-6, MP9 fitness program. That doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Yeah. No, this is the real Liver King program right here, right? I can do the same thing with these 2-pound weights. I can just focus on a couple like smaller muscle segments. What our liver actually does is, I think a lot. Our liver does some of them, some owns metabolic functions. You use steroids. I don't use steroids, bro. No offense. I definitely don't. Our liver stores carbohydrates, metabolizes stuff, but also really important are our kidneys, right? If you ever wondered why it's the case that like kidneys recycle amino acids and all kinds of stuff through our body. And so this is partially why, no, you don't have to go out and act like a coyote or a freaking crazy person. But if you think that you have to be doing like 400-pound sled pulls, or if you think you have to be doing 4,000, 4,500 calorie meat only diets to make progress, to either have that great feeling of a great workout, to feel like you accomplished something, to feel like you learned something, to feel like you moved away or felt a way you haven't felt before, to get really like dangerously strong, brother. You don't need all that stuff. There's not like a superhero shortcut, but yeah, buy my PDF, guys. If you guys want the superhero shortcut, buy my PDF for how much? Hey, chat. Why don't you guys tell your buddy Duck how much Duck sells his freaking PDF for? Hold on. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Vegan fitness PDF. I'm gonna let you guys do this. Okay. Yep, I started the poll. I need to get a couple votes in. Sorry. God, you guys don't like polls. I lost so many viewers, right? I can't imagine being Liver King. Like, I know some of these influencers are like crazily watching like I put my head up here so I can see like the viewer count and likes and stuff. I can't imagine being Liver King and doing this really unhealthy, really dangerous, probably a fitness routine that he doesn't actually know enough about. And I don't mean to, like, no disrespect to the guy, right? But like, I don't think he knows as much as, like, say, an Olympic wrestler or a marathon runner or something like that. Um, but you know, seeing someone like Liver King go out and do all that stuff while he has so many followers, while he goes from sort of zero to hero, like that is obviously that's whatever, you know that's the crazy thing. Like a court system can't just say like, tell me about your story. I don't know. Knights Templar Deuce Vault. I am God. I am death. All right, chat. Let's do a quick worship session for Knights Templar Deuce Volt. Chat, you guys get the likes up. We have 28 people here. We have God in our midst, and 28 people is not enough for Bro here. And by Bro, I mean His Grace the Almighty. So I don't know what Deuce Volt means, but Knights Templar. I'm going to assume Bro is very regal, commanding, and quixotic. Quixotic, perhaps. Yes. You're quixotic. It must be the case, God. Yes. Yeah, Screen Watcher, that's a great point. If anyone lifts, check out anyone lifts in God, please bless Screen Watcher for sure. He, she, they person, whoever, sorry, makes a great point. In my opinion, that being hard on joints lifting can be if technique is bad, which most use steroid user. Yeah, so steroid use and as well as influencers. So steroid use does influence bad technique. This is one of the crazy ones. So yeah, if you're lifting, you realize you have to get both the eccentric and concentric motions down. And even without all the terminology and stuff, something like, like even our forearms, right? Our forearms, like you have a lot of different muscle groups, muscle fibers, all this stuff. You have a lot of different muscles and muscle fibers. And so, yeah, even thinking about having good technique for 7 days out of the week, being ready for your one workout, that's it. That would be the main thing is like, get good at being ready for that one exercise, get good at being ready for, the next set, be good at picking the right weight range and reps, if you're not doing a PDF program, by the way, and then eventually, like, when we think of how just, this is one of the things that always motivated me is how great lifters and athletes always are, is that like Michael Jordan committed during the off season, like during a pro off season when he was probably already exhausted, took him some time to recover. He committed to like a 6 to 8 week or 13-week strength training program. And so at that level, that like sort of professional level, having the specificity where you pick the right program that's going to work for 13 weeks and then being able to execute that program for 13 weeks, like that's like serious athlete, big dog stuff. Yeah. And so like when you're talking about being hard on joints, that's doubly difficult when you have either strength or hypertrophy goals. It's doubly hard when your diet is adjusting. It's doubly hard when you're doing like progressive overload and your frickin', diet is different. And yeah, slow and stretch. Let's hear this tip and advice. Slow and stretch, full range of motion is good for everyday people. Slow and stretch, full range of motion is good for everyday people. Yeah, that should wake them up. Yeah, I've got nothing. The only thing I'd add is that, like, walk. Walk and do like this might not be for everyone, but if you can get into the gym and do some slow sets, if you can get that full range of motion, you look good, you feel good, that's good. But still walk, still use your body. Maybe 1 day a week or something. If you can do functional stuff, especially while you're making diet changes, kind of, it's so hard, but if you have the allowance in your sort of daily schedule, have a full lifestyle motion while you're working on yourself and doing fitness. Go slow, stretch. Yeah, and invest a little time in the diet and stuff too. That's really good advice. And then you won't end up like Liver King. I don't want the man's lips on my lips anymore. I feel bad. I have nothing but sympathy, empathy to offer, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. What's your opinion on the current wars? There we go. Mr. Gojo, thank you for asking. So I had been talking with chat too. So yeah, I'm responding to chat stuff. So yeah, obviously war is bad. I shouldn't say obviously, but yeah, I believe in the doctrine of nonviolence. I'm not a pacifist. So what nonviolence to me means is if you Google it, you'll see that most people say nonviolence and pacifism are the same thing. And I in no way am endorsing Donald Trump's strikes on Iran. I'm in no way endorsing Iran attacks on Israel. I'm in no way endorsing Israel's severe campaign against Palestine. And I'm in no way supporting that Hamas worked with militias to attack Israel. I'm in no way supporting the Lebanese involvement. But I believe that to sort of earn that right to say I'm against war, yeah. So if I tell you that war is bad, and I say, the main issue is that we don't conduct diplomacy. We don't actually have enough information about each other. We don't share enough. If I say those things, then war is bad. Okay. I get the South Park reference. I can't do South Park voices, but can't do South Park voices. So my opinion of the current wars is that Donald Trump, I don't believe that Donald Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu have spent the right amount of time to try and avoid conflicts. I also believe that it is the case that it appears that in some possible world, I can understand why people would think that Iran and Palestine, as well as Lebanon, as well as Yemen to some extent, have steered into conflict as we've steered into each other. And everybody says they're so innocent. So I'm very sick of it because this always affects, people's kids. This affects people who enlisted in the military because they thought they were getting a good deal or because they had to. It always affects, the people who are starving in Palestine, obviously. It affects everyone, right? Ultimately, is there a looming fear of a potential World War III? Thank you for the question. Yeah. Not according to Duck's Fitness PDF, bro. Not if you're getting swole at diplomacy. There ain't no war on the horizon. No, this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Just with trying to make sense of the intelligence leaks. I think that war is more likely if people aren't asking some critical questions, right? I'm not telling you to be obsessed. I'm not recommending anyone goes out and starts scanning every AP news release. I'm not saying that, you have to write your politician if you're not in the US or something and say we have to do something about the US. Might not hurt, but the things right now, the main thing that would threaten World War III is it appears that Iran has the capabilities to start a highly securitized but very small, immature nuclear program outside of anything that could be conceived of as diplomatic. Outside, and the old US paradigm has been if you're going to do that, then we're probably going to go to war with you. But I also think it should and would be the case that the levels of aggression that are reserved for going to this full-scale war with a country that no one in the U.S. knows anything about, a country that elected a reformer for president, you know, is like, this is the spin BS. Is they're going to say, well, Iran is this Islamist regime. It's a highly offensively capable, sort of weak actor, but very violent regime that wants to go to war with people. No one wants a nuclear winner. Yeah, Dilbert, I'm responding to another chat. No offense. And yes, definitely no nuclear winner. Part of nonviolence is also considering, I think, like when we have something like mutually assured destruction, MAD, which is a political science paradigm, when we're talking about like a theory, like game theory and sort of analyzing strategic outlooks. Yeah, it's kind of all of this culminates in that, like, there is a Iranian regime that doesn't appear or act or ever make a decision to be the scale of threat that the Trump administration and that Benjamin Netanyahu's his government would look at as existential. There is an Iran that is like that, and there's also a United States and there's also an Israel that are able to choke the chicken. No euphemism, right? They're able to choke the chicken a little bit, though, and they're able to say that the aggression and the planning and the time and the budget that we actually reserved for you guys, for you assholes, the timing and the budget, sorry, no offense, YouTube, no offense, chat, the timing and the budget that we reserved for you, we can actually spend doing something else. We can spend this and have this whole sort of discussion another way. And this is what a lot of Democrats in the West think. They think that Iran should have had a future possible where you don't have as much sanctions, they don't have such expensive partners for oil production and transportation and refining. You just have transparency, very simple nuclear research, nuclear energy program. And Iran, guess what? If we say you're being oppressive and you want to be that way, if we say there's human rights abuses and you decided you want to be that way, and if you want to sit on your thumb, if the choice you want to make is that we're going to be this like nuclear research state, we're very oil rich, and this next big barrier that we have is energy abundant society. Like, this is, and sorry if there's folks from Iran in the chat. I'm not trying to sound mean or aggressive or hateful. I hopefully understand even better tomorrow than I did today. But the U.S. should compete with that kind of stuff a little bit, just like people should be competing with the U.S. Just like people should be competing with the U.S. when you say, well, yeah, the U.S. has horrible crime rates. They're horribly wasteful. All these things that, said from an American, said from a political scientist might sound not quite like when you hear someone else say that stuff. Obviously, it's my country or something like that, but 13 votes. Let's go. I'm going to check this poll in a second. But yeah, so World War III, I got Iran and Iraq mixed up, chance. Yeah, actually, Iran and Iraq also got Iran and Iraq messed up once. It's easy to do. They both start with an I. Yeah, that's interesting. That's one of the reasons I would love people to think more about peace and about really committing to diplomacy. Is like, it's interesting. Iraq and his brother Uday both came from the Iraqi military. In Iran, Ahmadinejad I think he has a military background, if I'm not mistaken. And so, I think it's great to have these strong male archetypical figures that have an important role in a society. I think it's also equally important in that case to be completely honest about the types of policies you produce and how other people see those. And so that's interesting because if you're a voter and you're making the best decision that you can make for your family, you should also be able to think about how other people who are also voting and making choices for their family are making those same decisions. That's what peaceful people normally do. I think that's what's at the core of nonviolence. Yeah. That's what's at the core of nonviolence, is that like every country has enough, yeehaw! Every country, US included, has enough horsepower. We have enough horsepower here to put forward good diplomacy, peacefulness. We have enough horsepower to get a lot of good stuff done. We have enough horsepower to help people build trust, and to build something you can poke, touch, that the right people are working on, right? That sits between us, even if we're not enemies, we're not allies, we're nothing. There's literally nothing here except this one really annoying thing that you have going on right now. And believe you're going to hear more of it eventually, but for right now, it's this one annoying thing, and I'm going to put something in the center of us. So that's partially what we're doing with all this. I think I covered the title, I think, says intelligence leaks. Is like, well, now the thing that is in the middle, whether anyone on Earth understands it, or if you're like me, it's like, did I go insane? Did I actually go a little insane? I'm going to be rocking back and forth here, not just like energetic stream vibe or whatever, but like, I was watching Fox News and I was watching CNN. You know what they were saying to me? Let me get my glasses on. This is what Fox and CNN was doing. This is what the crazy Christian broadcasting networks was saying to you, buddy duck. The crazy Christians was saying, oh, World War III's got to be inevitable. Did I lose my mind? Did I go that crazy overnight? I woke up yesterday and I was scared out of my mind because that was the first time I thought we were all going to die. But now I woke up this time today and I thought, well, surely it'll be at least another 2 weeks. Another 2 weeks, did you hear? We're all living in paradise now, baby. Yeah, the American Christian broadcasting networks are fucking crazy, dude. The headlines are so insane. Some are worse than others. And I'm not talking about like there's like one or two bigger, I don't know if they're part of a conglomerate or something, but they're absolutely nuts. Seriously. But yeah, one of the things the U.S. has to look at, and this is like, I'm gonna lawyer you. I'm gonna lawyer you up. We have to look at like if the U.S. has confidence that the Iranian program for even nuclear storage is something that's contained or that the military has access to, and it's just like, well, what does everyone else do, and why was that not the topic of conversation in a serious manner in the last 36 to 48 months? And so where do we go from there? What of that strategically is left? This is strongman theory perpetuates these conflicts for sure. Screen watchers coming with the heat today. Thank you. I appreciate the comments, the ideas, the support. That's sort of an important if you're thinking about strongman theory, I was about to say something completely opposite, just to be totally honest. Just to say something completely honest is that the strong man in the United States or anywhere isn't Donald Trump. It is the entire geopolitical strategy that focuses on how the United States operates domestically, and it is the strategy about how we export American products, including ideas, including ways of getting things done, how we can export that abroad. If you don't want to be a part of that, right? Like the entire old Soviet bloc, now it's BRICS. If you don't want to be part of Donald Trump's or the United States vision, and I don't want to be part of Donald Trump's vision, if you don't want to be part of what the United States has been capable of doing for the last 80 years, better, worse, hate us, love us, then that should be the end of that. That should mostly be the end of it. And so when we're talking about missing uranium, when we're talking about, oh, the sites weren't destroyed, Donald Trump's a liar. He's a liar and a thief. and we're talking about secret double and Israeli agents operating within the Iranian military or something. It's like, even this is smoke and mirrors. Even this isn't clearly stating what's best for Iran, what's best for Israel, what's best for the United States, what's best for Europe, what's best for Russia, what gets Russia out of the Ukrainian war. Like, holy crap. Not only that, but why do we not have partners in Saudi Arabia and Iran at the same time, to help curb Islamic extremism influencing African politics, right? Shouldn't that be on the table? Shouldn't that be on the table? This is one of the weird things about getting a political science degree in the US. Yeah, you definitely learn about Africa a lot. A lot of times you are like more seriously introduced to Africa when you take a class on international justice. If you take like a class on the ICC or something, The Hague, you can get full graduate degrees and stuff in that. So it's not like it's missed. But it's like, yeah, you hear about post-World War II, the second wave of democratization, where you have these things popping up. You have colonialism coming forth. You have a lot of proxy wars and stuff, but you don't actually get like a position on what Africa thought. Same thing with Iran. And this is maybe why I'm going a little crazy, because I have a degree. I was a great student. I did honors college and all this kind of stuff. I was a great student, but when it came to Iran, like, it takes you years to realize what it means that Iran was globally secluded. It takes years to sort of contextualize what it meant that all across the Fertile Crescent, from Iraq to Iran, like, everyone had these rumblings and conversations about starting a more liberal regime. Some did it, some didn't. And over the course of even something like in the 1980s, when the US and the entire globe, right, versus the flat Earth, right? The entire globe versus the flat Earth, invested in like Korea and Southeast Asia, and they got a bunch of manufacturing equipment. China was starting to get, they were really starting to ramp things up by the late 80s into the 90s. China was getting stuff going. Still very poor and agrarian, right? But as all this stuff is happening, change is happening. Thank God, right? Change is happening. Thank goodness. Thank our constitutions. Stuff's holding up, right? Mr. President, I don't know which hand I salute with, but it's one of these two. One of these two right here. One of these two right here. And so Iran not having a lot of export power, does that increase the risk of World War III? Well, it shouldn't, right? In theory, this is what strategy is about. And again, no offense to Bro Screenwatcher. I would talk strongman some other time. I'm sure it's interesting, but like, if we're talking strategy and not strongman, you don't get to be in the United States or Iran and have woulda, shoulda, couldas. There's no woulda, shoulda, couldas. If it's the case that it's better for us to diplomatically engage than to fight about it, it doesn't matter if you were as mean and nasty as a person can be last week. If you're trustworthy this week, if you're trustworthy and the strategy says you should do it, this is where you should always avoid conflicts. You should avoid conflicts where you should downscale your expectations about a lot of stuff and just get a freaking deal done. Not like Donald Trump, but get something tangible, get something that can be enduring, get something that gets over the hill and gets the right people looped in. It doesn't matter. Buy everything, sell everything, liquidate. It's a going out of business sale. Like, this crazy stuff that is like, I don't know. I'm also sorry, chat and everyone. I was misrepresenting Mr. Screenwatcher mentioned strongman and is not in favor of a strongman theory. Not in favor of strongman theory. Yeah. So I still think my main contention is that the only idea that matters at this point is that Iran likely is controlling without having the same sort of controls around their nuclear material. That is something that I can guarantee you there are specific people at the Pentagon whose job is to look at that kind of stuff. And yeah, and I imagine it is also it's a touchy topic because, right, this is not business as usual. This is not business as usual. So when you think about like how does that actually operationalize and help the case for for peace? Does this help democratic peace theory? Bro, does this help the United States come off as a peaceful country? Can you explain this back to me a little bit? How is it the case that you have some guy at the Pentagon looking at all these computers and all of a sudden he's going to say all these mean things to Iran? I don't understand how we got this way. How did we get here? Dog, have you ever heard of a hairbrush? Nah, I whip my hair back and forth. Nah, you don't like it? Yeah. I'll put on my CIA hat. If you want a CIA hat, fake CIA. If you want a spy hat, I think that's it. There we go, buddy. How you doing, man? Yeah, so what was I gonna say? Yeah, and so this is weird. If we're talking about like strongman and we're talking about actual like what a game changer might be like, who's at the Pentagon or part of the State Department right now, what are the things that matter most to Iranians and Americans? Because the truth is most Americans and Iranians don't wake up, and the way in which they care about this nuclear program is actually much smaller. It's much smaller. It doesn't matter if you have stuff in this facility or if it's outside of it. It might actually be better if it's outside of it, right? It might actually be better that way. It might actually be better because then you do have to have a offensive conversation from the perspective of the Pentagon. From the perspective of the State Department, you just have to have certainty. Certainty is what you have to have. You have to have certainty. And so in some senses, if you guys want to have real talk, and also hit like, subscribe if you want, because I'm giving you guys the goods right now. I'm just kidding. I hate that ego stuff. I don't want to do any of that anymore. No, but if you have someone at the Pentagon, someone who's part of the DoD or CIA, or they're one of Trump's Joint Chiefs or something, they're saying, the conversation that they'd actually have is, well, any diplomatic platform at this point, this is the first thing I'm going to put forward, Mr. President. The first thing I'm going to put forward is what we're actually talking about is the type of conflict which is on the top and the type of diplomacy which is on the bottom. And from our perspective, we only have control of that top. And so the thing that's at the bottom that we would flip on top is that diplomacy is possible. In which case, we're going back to business as usual, unless there's something to change that calculus. That's what strategy and geopolitical realism says. Very dangerous idea. And so is World War III necessitated? I don't see anything where if I'm writing like a strategy brief and just kind of playing off the cuff, making this up a little bit, I don't see where World War III came into this. And I don't see what someone from Iran could say if I'm the hegemon to change this. I don't see that. I don't see this. Realistically, if I want to be a peacemonger and I'm looking at the same package here, to me, if I'm looking at the diplomatic package here, I'm saying, oh my God, did you guys see what we just did? This is a massive poop we just put out in front of us. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, we're losing our minds here. Did you see what we did? This is my nephew's college education here. This is absolutely absurd. This is absolutely absurd what we've done. And so this is interesting. This is also why subversive state activity cost so much money. If you guys want more cool stuff, more fun stuff to talk about. Who here? Let me know in chat if anyone has talked. Is that a Jewish beard? No, I don't believe so. I believe it's dead cells and all this other stuff. Oh my God, Bubby. Do you want my Bubby voice? Do you want me to be Jewish? Do you want me to just be from New York? What about Chicago? What do you want me to be? Little country? What kind of guy am I now? How about that? How about it? How about it? How about that? Let's go. So just to sweep this into your minds, because we're on YouTube mobile, I think we're allowed to talk about crazy topics. I don't know if any of you have thought about like actual state subversive activity. State subversion costs money, and I'm going to explain this to you very simply. We just talked about it, actually. We just talked about it. Here, I'll show you this. I have basketball cards here because I'm like a little autistic, actually, and I collect basketball cards. Like I don't understand the social stuff, but so I have two basketball cards here. I've got Shaquille O'Neal and Scottie Pippen. So let's say my Scottie Pippen is my diplomacy card, and this is Shaquille O'Neal. This is my shit stick. No offense, YouTube. Sorry. This is my beat the ever living hell out of you stick. And I'm a nation state, so this is an Air Force. This is a Navy. This is signals. This is every single one of your hopes and dreams. And I at least know about that. I can do a lot worse, but I know about it. These are your hopes and dreams where you and I can work together and we hopefully leave each other alone. We collaborate. And so imagine we have both of these on the table. Now, subversion seems like it's free. It seems like I could, if I am in the CIA or if I am part of the IRGC or Pakistani ISI or Israeli Mossad, the KGB, what is it, MI6 in frickin' the UK. It seems like I could just look, I'm gonna go make some Discord troll accounts, some bot accounts. I am going to get people to work at the most influential companies I know, probably programmers because they hire a ton of them. It's like, this repeating wheel, and whatever. I'm gonna do everything that I can do to go out and find a way to influence people. And so when I'm doing subversion, what I'm doing is I'm taking a diplomatic platform, and in theory, what I'm doing is weakening it. Now, if you're a really mean, nasty guy, if you're like me and you're as mean and nasty as Duck's Y, what you should say is that, look, as I do subversion and I make you weaker, it seems like it makes it more attractive for my beating stick to come out, because you're either already losing stuff, or you have to cut the damages, or something like this. But the problem is that these two are never separate. In competition, in game theoretic competition, you always have equal and zero-sum outcomes. And so this is a challenge with Iran and Israel and the Middle East, specifically these very tight geographical regions, really anywhere, but especially in these tight geographies, is that, look, if no one sees it as a threat that you have a strong education program, that you have a trustworthy political process, that you have stable infrastructure for energy and water, utilities, that your economy is strong. If I'm going to attack those things to make you weaker long term, that makes it more difficult for us to then negotiate on the level of diplomacy, to take away the beating stick, get rid of Shaquille O'Neal, get rid of the thunder stick, all that kind of stuff. And so you find these scenarios that pop up. This is what game theory is about. It is specifically about scenarios. There's not like a worldview, which is game theory. It's not, I got to go back into, who knows. Maybe I can work on a crazy Russian voice. If I do enough crazy American voice, maybe I can buy crazy Russian voice. I woke up in Game Theory Thunderland. Game Theory Thunderland. It is fairly strange. Very strange, but also very... We do the same things, but always a different scorecard. It must be. It must be. What up? What's up? And so I hope that's sort of made sense, food for thought, or something that, you can run into these scenarios where it's like, well, shucks, I sure shouldn't have kicked you in the shin, because I sure should be kicking you in the goddamn fucking shin right now. So if you're talking about avoiding World War III, if you're talking about actually avoiding World War III, actually avoiding an Iranian nuclear program, no duh, then it's like, yeah, we should have been thinking a lot about a lot of whatever it was. We don't have to be best friends or anything. We don't have to be worst enemies either. Very frustrating to get common sense all gone. All Iranian people are well educated, respectful, and intelligent. Yeah, Sarpkea, I try and, I try and share nice facts about different places when I am, because I don't know all that much. Um, but like, like the first thing, like Iranian government right now, 45% of people in Iran do have a higher education over the age of 25. They have secondary ed. Um, Now they're getting more nationalist. Yeah, yeah, that's the crazy thing, right? I wanted to bring that up when I was talking about subversion and institutions and culture. And so, if you don't have a platform that ever centers around anything, if you don't have stability, and part of that, if you're in the U.S., the thing I always would say is that, well, look, if you're in an authoritarian, securitized regime based on energy, it doesn't matter why that was, and why that is. You have some manufacturing and stuff, but if you can't get the levers going in the right direction, diplomacy is also less attractive. Diplomacy doesn't look as attractive as kind of staying the course and figuring out everything else you have working. So subversion is also, again, when it costs money to do subversion, when it costs money to even ask about, like, I don't know why we're talking about this. I forgot. I totally look like a crazy internet person now. But when it costs money to go do subversion or something like that, yeah, it's partially because nationalism also gets cheaper. It gets cheaper to have this identity. This is probably why, right? Like, when you're talking about creating influential change that creates holistic buy-in, that actually pulls levers, that pulls the really big strategic drivers forward. When you're talking about that being possible, the reason that becomes possible, even if I'm totally blind as from an American perspective, totally blind to my own country's weaknesses, the reason that stuff becomes expensive when subversion happens is because no one wanted to do it in the first place. No one wanted to do that. Otherwise, they would have been doing it. They would have been doing it. Yeah, and so that's like a crazy. This is like my counterintuitive pacifist thinking. I'm probably gonna. I got 25 votes. If you guys want to hit like and sub, I'm gonna check on this poll. It looks like I did not make Get your last votes in. I'm gonna end this mofo soon. But let's go. Maybe I'm being serious. I'm gonna have a tree fitty, no PDF. Audio down. Oh shit. You hear me? Can you guys hear me now? F. Everybody left. Oh, whoops. Yeah. Sorry, let me get one more in and then. And we're going to wind down in just a minute here. Thank you for hanging out and thank you for enjoying your night doing whatever you're doing. I think we're supposed to do this kind of stuff during these live streams. Very strange, but yeah, so that's a big strategic thing. So everyone talks about this differently. The United States talks about institutions. I don't actually think institutions are BS. I think it's actually like from my perspective as an American, having something like an institution for education, an institution for criminal justice, all that kind of stuff is it's very transparent. You can measure it. You can hear politicians talking about it. And so in the United States, when you're talking about like something like capitalism working, when you're talking about it being fair and equitable, when you're talking about having global impact, when you're talking about having the right motions and levers for sustainable economies, kind of driving into a mindset of sustainability for culture, and when you're talking about all of those ultimately supporting a strong defense infrastructure, sounds like random nonsense BS words, but from the US's perspectives, it's incredibly defensible and it's adaptive. It's adaptive and all that stuff. No, I am not Ted Kaczynski. I am not Ted Kaczynski. No, but I was about to tell you and lie to you and tell you I went to Harvard. I didn't go to Harvard, but are more militant. The U.S. likes to manufacture them. Yeah, and so institutionalism in the United States means that you can care a little or a lot about politics over 2, 5, 100, or 200 years. That's like a very human psychological interpretation of what nationalism is, or institutionalism is, and that's what nationalism in the United States is supposed to be like. That's like the non-subversive sort of diplomatic cover that the United States goes for. The violent form of nationalism, I think, in the United States is you don't just have institutions. At the beginning of time, before God breathed life into the archangel Michael, before the first tear was shed by any human, what the Father taught to his Son was indeed that God gave the land of the United States, these great states, many locations of iron ore, from which he would go out and make a rifle. And from that rifle, he would make 10 more. From those 10, he would make 1,000. And from those 1,000, he would make 10,000. From those 10,000, he would make tanks, bombs, planes, and more guns and more ammunition. And so as God created institutions given to man through natural religion and natural law, and as man became proficient at controlling their property, controlling their own self, using reason, tempered mindsets, man became good at owning and producing things and producing ideas like the Protestant ethic, like Calvinism. He created myths and narratives which to control his property and self-preserving attitude, as well as to protect his fellow man from his own greed, to create this limited government with these beautiful institutions boiling up, covering the land, giving people confidence that they could go out and build a life that a God would intend. And they forgot that what God did when he breathed life into the archangel Michael was that he sowed the seeds of disgusting destruction, suffering. Suffering is what he's been doing. He's been building suffering for mankind, and that's the stick. You've got the carrot and the stick. You've got a carrot and a stick. And yeah. So are we on the edge of World War III? Well, you have, if we're going back to this and we're talking about who can actually push out change, you probably do have some really fucking crazy people in both the United States and an Iranian as well as Israeli government who speak in, like I do, they speak psychobabble. And the reason that they do this is because at the end of the day, you have the carrot and the stick. And if you allow yourself to change your mind about nuclear programs because of a bigger stick, you're forgetting what a stick is in the first place. You're giving way too much meaning to something which is just like every other preventable event. And you also are probably forgetting what a carrot is. You're going to misrepresent in your head. You're afraid, right? If we go back, YouTube loves this biblical stuff, right? You've got the Archangel Michael. Boy, I got my cousin Dwayne. I got my sister Shelly Ann. I got Shelly Ann, Sherry Ann, Susie Ann, Diane. I got everybody except Dwayne here. Why are my girl cousins showing up? Why would I inject olive oil into my eyelids? I don't know. Pig shit. Yeah, if you got clean eyes, you can see a lot of good stuff. I don't know. Extra virgin olive oil. Jesse James, thank you. I am an R slur. Could be. Yeah, so the carrot and the stick. Crazy people in Washington, intelligence leaks. The main thing the interesting one, I think, is that, It doesn't really matter if you are only in control and deciding for diplomatic or military purposes what's happening and what's going to happen, and that's all people want you to decide, then it doesn't really matter that much, right? If you don't have a person that is making a decision for nonviolence or into diplomacy, into nationalism, into institutionalism, into those things for reasons of nonviolence and diplomacy, you're going to get a bad decision. You're going to get a violent decision. Ideology, it creates suffering. Yeah, I am sorry to hear that. Ideology is so weird because we were talking about Hegel earlier. Hegel isn't like an ideologue, right? He's like Hegel is a philosopher, right? If you guys know about Hegel, Hegel is Hegel, he talks about history creating reality. He talks about history. He talks about how, like, look, you don't have like carrots and stick with this Iran-Israel conflict. You just have what people are saying about it now. And eventually people are going to decide on what mattered, what meaning existed, what people could have done better or worse, and why that would be true. You just have history. You just have time. And so if we're talking about like Iran being less ideological, perhaps seeing that, whatever, the aspects of, I think it's Shia culture that is driving effective institutional choices at the time. It's driving social cohesion, and you don't have a monopoly on social cohesion or something. There's not one person who decides this. It's Iranian society, and if Iranians don't feel safe and secure, what do you get? You get a worse version of Iran, or so you think, so you guess. Right? If we're playing on this other side, no, I'm not a Muslim. But I think what do I say? Assalamu alaikum. No, I'm not Muslim. Alaikum salam. No. But yeah, if we have this version of Iran that has very different cultural context in the United States, I can just say I don't need to see George Floyd, right? I don't see George Floyd getting the crap beat out of him on the news, and I don't see Megyn Kelly on Fox News spreading hateful, false, misleading rhetoric and not actually sharing the facts, not actually helping people at the right time get sort of the emotional side of, like a black person getting beat by the police in the US. Not allowed to do that, by the way. Not anywhere. Not in the US for sure. If you don't get that whatever, you don't get that side of the story. I just totally like crashed out, right? No, retard liberal. Jesse James, I bet you are a very wonderful person. A wonderful person. And yeah. But yeah, we were talking about ideology and Hegel. Ideology and history creating some narrative of events that you can't ignore. You can't ignore a certain event. You can't ignore a person. You can't ignore a person that's just like you. You can't ignore a person who's just like you. So one of the things that sort of centers and creates strength and maybe buttresses a certain side of a narrative or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense. That Iran's culture is both an asset and a liability. It's a good thing, it's a bad thing. It is creating great ideas or progress, or it's totally holding them back. It's got all the wrong stuff it needs to go, right? Total reformists, total reformers. And by the way, when you elect in Iran a president who says people need freedom of assembly to protest, what you're sort of saying is that, well, Iranian culture and ideology needs to be given that space to breathe. You're not always going to have a Shia dominant everything in frickin' Iran. So they said this. Whatever. But yeah, when you're talking about creating strong systems and strong support networks from a Hegelian perspective and not being an ideologue, allowing the game to work. You know, it's hard because when you have subversion, when you have people acting out of turn, when you have people spotting inorganic opportunities, all of those things cost money. All of those things cost money from an intelligence perspective. From like a very sick, very cool, could be a documentary like Black Ops perspective. When you're telling news anchors on CNN or Iranian state TV that the world is different than they think it is, that all costs money. All of this stuff throughout all of our history and all of our time has cost money. When the IRGC and ISI finds ways to funnel resources or support terrorist groups, blame it on climate change. That all costs money. All of this has costed money. All of this is still costing money. And so at the end of the day, you have these people that are terrorists and they're acting exactly like freaking Megyn Kelly or Candace Owens. These whatever. Some guy I know was watching Louder with Crowder on his freaking stream today. It's like, I'm going to lose my mind. No offense. I'm going to lose my mind because how is it the case that I can think of, we were just talking about the craziest person at the Pentagon, right? The craziest person in the IRGC and the Pentagon right now, and how you have, and I absolutely love it, right? But you have absolute psychobabble that's happening. It is insane. The level of psychobabble that's happening. And no offense, but when I have this bird's eye view of some guy that has intelligence where he can control like a frickin' B-2 bomber or, some sort of underground cell or missiles, high speed stuff, really the scariest stuff the United States can imagine, the scariest stuff like people all over the world thinking about World War III can imagine. And I compare those people to bad broadcasters who are just bad at doing their job, who are really good in front of a camera, really good voice, really good all this other stuff, but they don't tell you the truth. They're not honest. And this is exactly how they're like Donald Trump too. They're exactly like Donald Trump, the guy who's supposed to be running the show, the guy who's supposed to be unshakable. Maybe Donald Trump is unshakable, but I'm not moving from my position that Donald Trump frickin' 4 to 8 years ago, 10 years ago, a decade ago, said, yeehaw, I'm done with my interview in New York. I'm done getting interviewed by Al Roker. I'm done getting interviewed by frickin' Wolf Blitzer on CNN. I'm going to run for frickin' president. And what happened at that time was that Donald Trump picked a platform where he wanted his buddies, he wanted cronyism. He didn't care about what Obama did because he had to say everything Obama did was stupid. And so who's left tending to the sheep? Is it God and the Archangel Michael? We're just talking about this religion in the normal sense. In the normal sense, you have a creation story, man is given reason, and then I don't care what you believe. Turns out I own a toaster oven, I have a mortgage, I got all this other bull crap, whatever. You don't need to know about my life. That was a lie. But you have a creation story, and the only thing undergirdling the carrot of life and opportunity is that what the Father learns from the Son, which he then teaches back to the Father, is the Archangel Michael learns hatred, he learns violence, he learns you turn guns into more guns. And when this finally gets back to Donald Trump, you are expecting the good shepherds of the world. You are expecting not the conspiracy theorists, not the yes men on Breitbart, not the yes men on Truth Social, not the lying nationalist pigs to repeat your messaging for you. You're expecting that a neglected and a beaten and a downtrodden institution of both defense as well as politics is doing your work, doing your job for you. You're the executive of the United States. It is unacceptable that you're not transparent, that you just lied to the American people about Iranian's nuclear facilities being destroyed. And it is unacceptable that you would think that just randomly you can toss out a bunch of BS on the news and that the right aspects of the heartland of American is going to catch your lies. The heartland of the United States, right? From the Bible Belt all the way through Silicon Valley to the high rises in New York, right? The most humble parts of the Midwest where my family's from. Tornado Alley, I don't care, right? We've got the bluffs in Utah and Idaho, right? Go Hawkeyes, go Wrestlers, right? Let's get the boys with a little bit of that Southern grammar down in Florida. I can't even do it right now, right? I can't. I do have a little Southern grammar, not that much. It's enough, right? It's enough. but you can go anywhere in the United States, and these people are supposed to be doing the job of a geopolitical strategist for you right now. BS. Bull crap. You cannot pass that off. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. And instead, what you want me to believe is that right now the United States and Israel, two of the most powerful countries in the world, are doing the best job they possibly could. BS again. That's absolutely also insane to me. That's insane to me. And so finally, at the end of the day, when we get down to it, and I want, as an American, everything I've heard about Iran being a repressive regime, about Iran having a corrupt economic system that's going to be a burden on the international arena for years to come, everything I've heard about that, your answer to that was a goddamn press conference telling us that you just woke up on a Sunday, had a cup of coffee, and decided to drop 6 fucking bombs on them. Bullshit. That's absolutely bullshit. Where's the fucking carrot and the stick now? There never was one, because what you were doing is you were expecting something that needs to be perfectly honed, perfect 90-degree angles, right? It needs to be able to cut a sheet of paper in half by itself. It needs to be airless, breathless, silent. And what you told us as president, what you told us is we don't need any of that. We don't need truth or honesty. We don't need a way that we can stand up alongside the Iranian people or the Israelis. You told us that we can be alone here. We can sit and rot. That's absolute horse crap. Yes, and I want to respond to something here. My man, I don't know, a person, the brain just said, someone's crying as if Kamala was going to be here, and I'm so sorry for this, right? I'm so sorry for pulling from chat, but I'm going to do this right here real quick. Okay, so here's the thing. Donald Trump has praised himself. He's called himself out. He said he was going to be the president of peace. Now, I got to pose this question to you. If you're a political person, you're in the U.S., whatever, you're supporting this guy who just told us he's going to use B-2 bombers to drop crap on this country that we don't live in. He already did this, right? He already lied about it. And he said he was going to be the president of peace. So how is this better? How is this better? If we're talking about the carrot and the stick, we're talking about Americans that want to wake up and believe in institutionalism, believe in economics. You have people that are in the U.S. that want to believe in voting. They want to believe in America having a moral high ground. If it is imperfect, we can talk about it. We have that power of dialogue. We have that power of procedure. What do you get? What do you get down here? What do you get all the way at the bottom of this? You get a president that did something. He asked the American people, he asked institutions that have no business conducting diplomacy to hold on to his sword and sheath for him. He asked the American military and the Congress and every administrative office of the White House to make this decision to drop this bomb, to drop the bombs. Donald Trump asked other people to be president for him. And so if you're gonna be in chat here, if you're gonna be on the internet and you're telling me that this know nothing, do nothing, turncoat president, this turncoat president that's gonna stand behind me and push me forward, I've got no business in this. I'm not a weak man. I'm not a weak person. I'm not a foolish man either, though. You cannot ask me to make these decisions that I never tried to make a decision like this before. I want to know about something before this. And so if we have a president of peace, how is it not the case that someone like Kamala Harris, even someone like Mamdani, this democratic socialist that's going to be running in New York, he's not even from the US, he's from Uganda. How is it not the case that this guy from Uganda, or Kamala Harris, or Joe Biden, or AOC, Bernie Sanders, whoever else is on that list for the United States, for Democrats, would not have been a more peaceful president than this guy who did nothing, and now we're getting the default, and then we get what comes after that default. I pray to God we don't have World War III. I don't want to use that as rhetoric. That's my line in the sand. That's my 2 cents. That's my 2 cents. But I can't believe that I can sit here with intelligent people on the internet, not trying to toot your horns, but people that maybe have learned something about Iran, learned something about political science, learned something about society, has a new idea about technology, has not a new idea about diplomacy. All this stuff is 5 minutes that anyone can spend. And in this 5 minutes, it seems like a better decision than whatever Donald Trump has been doing for the last 4 years. Campaigning, lying, building a social media network, stealing from cancer patients in New York, getting sued for sexual assault. All of this nonsense. All of this nonsense. Do we have democracy in the United States? Absolutely we do. Absolutely we do. We absolutely do. We also have a crazy military-industrial complex. This is the part that I kind of break off from Democrats, though, right? I'm going to really look like a bad guy here because I'm going to say something. I'm going to say that any Democrat right now would have been better than Donald Trump. I'm going to say people that have never even held office, not even as a representative, not even in an assembly, would have been better than Donald Trump because they would not have been a know-nothing, do-nothing, lie and say nasty things president. They would have been a somebody president, and I think that would have been enough. I think that would have been enough for Israel. That would have been enough for the United States. That would have been enough for our partners in Europe, and that would have been enough for the people who are enemies, not allies. They're nothing to us. They're the bad guys. We could have done more with that. We could have done something. But if I go out on a ledge on this, I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to say that our United States military, love it or hate it, know the words, know the language. I'm not a veteran. If you are, cool. Thank you for your service. All this other stuff is that you need to be able to represent a national interest with something there because everybody's got a something. And you need to be a strong enough leader, smart enough. You need to be able to build that whip. You build that whip. You build that whip. You don't ride that bull. You build that farm. You build a community. You build a system. You build systems. You build structure. You build structures. You build a coalition of people who are willing to lose and willing to win because they have a better idea. They have an idea about peace. They have an idea about human flourishing. They have an idea about building trust. They have an idea about diplomacy. When someone brings up the word power and strength, they have an idea about power and strength. Donald Trump, his idea of power and strength, what is it? Where does it live? Does it live with Sean Hannity? Does it live with Megyn Kelly? Does it live with Steve Bannon? What? It lives in some mythology of Barack Obama not being born in the United States. Donald Trump hitched his carriage to this birther lie over a decade ago, over 10 years ago. Do you know what he should have been doing then? He should have been reading Henry Kissinger. You're going to hate me for saying that. Henry Kissinger, one of the mass murderers of history, one of the people who spent a career in civil service making the most horrific decisions the United States could ever make, bombing innocent people around Southeast Asia. But guess what? In 2012, when Donald Trump was running, considering the 2016 bid, what Donald Trump should have been doing is reading Henry Kissinger. He should have been listening to smarter theorists. He should have been honing his message instead of for what was convenient and expedient. He should have been considering that convenient and expedient at that time, the thing that won, the thing that was always going to win. It's not what's best for the Iranian people. It's what's best for people like the Iranian people at all times. He should have expected that if he won, he had 8 years in office. He had 8 years. He should have expected that he was going to have 8 years uninterrupted. Why did he get voted out? He got voted out because he was incompetent the first time. He built it the wrong way the first time. He didn't make the right decisions, or he made the wrong decisions at the right time. Wrong decisions at the right time. Just lucky enough for the United States people to understand and get him out of there. No offense to folks here saying racist stuff in the chat. I believe if this was a hot church, I would say God loves you. I'm not a religious person. I'm not a Christian. Obama isn't a fucking monkey. Obama was someone who was born in the suburbs of Chicago, learned and studied with the smartest people in the world for 8 years. Cambridge, Boston. He was an organizer. He was a lawyer. Obama probably got his ass kicked. Maybe he had it a little too easy sometimes, but Obama served as a representative, as a senator, before getting elected president. And then he had to take on this horrible, crazy, crazy war that we had going on in Afghanistan and Iraq. Obama's not a monkey. Obama was born in the United States, and the fact that the conversation drifts there shows you that you should not be supporting this leader who's making a decision that all day people have been asking me if we're going to be getting into World War III. Am I the guy to answer that? Not necessarily. That should be your president. Why the hell are people asking some guy making a video on YouTube Shorts right now, on YouTube, like on my freaking cell phone, dude? Why, like, yeah, I studied political science, right? I stay up on stuff, but you should not be asking me about World War III or about what's wrong with Obama. I do love Trump. I love Trump as a person. But if Trump's strategy is always so under the surface, he's either this crazy, brilliant genius, but when is the time to pull the plug on that idea? When is the time to pull the plug on that? I'll tell you when it was. It was 10 years ago. It was more than a decade ago when he started spreading conspiracy lies that Obama wasn't born in the United States. No sane person fit for office would have done that. The second time he should have pulled the plug on that is when Donald Trump orders a strike on Iran, and this is the current context we're in. Your president, my president, our president, has had 3 major significant intelligence leaks that his office cannot make sense of. They can't reconcile with the decision to strike Iran. They cannot reconcile these intelligence leaks with the fact that he lied in front of everyone and said that they destroyed these sites. Like, that's a relief now. This is absolutely insane. Francisco, this guy looks like he likes to drink children's blood. Leave the kid stuff out. Let's not do that here. No offense, bro. Yeah, it was a huge mistake. China is scared of what the United States will do. Do you guys want to know what they're talking about in New York right now? This is just how wacky it is in the US. This is how disconnected. You have a guy from Uganda. You have a guy from Uganda talking about building like super cool buses, about building government grocery stores. He's going to be our next mayor in New York. I'm not in New York, but we're going to have a Democratic Socialist. We're finally going to have a guy who, you know, whatever, someone to challenge not just the culture that, okay, Democrats and Republicans both have to admit when we don't know something, when we're wrong about something. We have to have bipartisan politics working. And if we take these sort of polarizing positions, we have to also be able to effectively oppose each other. This is why Donald Trump's not capable of doing that. Let me push into you guys a little bit. Let me push into my MAGA friends down here. My MAGA friends. Let me push into you. Donald Trump hasn't pushed into the Democratic position one time. He's called in the National Guard and Marines on peaceful demonstrators. He has let me be generous and charitable. He's done a very mean and cruel thing in totally redesigning the ICE program to penalize people that are living in the United States pursuing work and education. That's just nastiness. It's just being mean. This isn't a policy. This is Donald Trump's been talking down to people for the last 10 years. We deserve worse, right? You know, we're ushering in the second apocalypse. Like, that almost sounds more realistic than whatever MAGA is actually standing for. You have this weird fascination with globalists. What is a globalist? What is a globalist? MAGA folks want to talk in chat. What is a globalist? What is a financier? What is a financier? Is a financier, is there an application in front of me? What am I financing? Am I financing Mamdani's in New York, his grocery stores? Am I financing a bus line? Am I financing something else? No, I want to understand. Obama was getting his by his wife. Yeah, yeah. Obama might have been getting pegged by Michelle. Like, good point. That is POTUS, though. That is President Obama would have been getting pegged by Michelle. So show a little bit of respect. That modicum, that decorum, that decor, baby. You gotta have that decor. I don't know what a globalist is. I just don't understand. So Donald Trump hasn't put forward a platform. He said mean, nasty, conspiratorial things. He talks down to people. He's talking down to people. It's not that hard to like lift something up, right? If Donald Trump told me like, we shouldn't be like, I'm not totally confident that right now at the beginning of my term, we shouldn't be running secret operations in Iran. We should be using assets we have in Iran to shore up any resources we would have for a diplomatic conversation. If Biden wasn't doing that, then we don't need to tell the American people Biden did a horrible job. We should be trying to restore relations that I think Trump actually messed those up in the first term. We should, Donald Trump at the beginning of 2016, if he wanted to challenge his MAGA voters, yep. If Donald Trump wanted to challenge his MAGA voters, he could have said that, like, look, Israel has been having mandatory military service and heavy defense investment for the last 2 decades. It's not clear that they needed this level. It's not clear they needed the courts. It's not clear there needed to be any domestic signals to any partners that that Israel is more securitized. And so the U.S.'s platform is ensuring that Israel is institutionally strong, and that as that occurs, they also have a correct mix, right, in a tight regional area with their closest neighbors, Israel. I'm Donald Trump. All you got to do, all Ben's got to do is get in the room and have conversations and have the right stuff at the right times. That's all you have to do if you're in that area. That would have been a little challenging. That would have been a healthy dose of challenging. Do you know what he does instead? No, he's going to support people and work with people that spread rhetoric about. Donald Trump is going to spread stuff about the Jews. Sorry, I don't know. The stream just disconnected for a second. I'm probably going to end this soon, but yeah, please like and subscribe if you're here. But yeah, the right amount of challenging would be Donald Trump doesn't talk to people about the Jews and all this stuff. He doesn't work with people that do that. He talks about peace, diplomacy, prosperity. Thanks, folks, for everyone who hung around. Robert Switzer's here. What's up? What's up? Should we keep it going for a second? Should we have a little fake degen power hour? Got a couple of the folks here. Couple friends. See, George Soros is a globalist. I want to read this in chat. Someone who has enough money to globally manipulate the systems and countries. Okay. Yeah, this is interesting. I was talking about this with someone on a Discord earlier. So I don't know if anyone likes President Sunday. I just joined his Discord. He's a cool, really smart guy, political science professor, a great YouTube channel. He's fun to listen to. He's very intelligent. But yeah, so George Soros and this stuff. This is something that, like, you might think I'm being like, a soy boy for the US or something. But like, even guys like, when you talk about the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers and stuff like that, when you have a lot of money, there's 2 things that matter. The first thing that matters is that you're fairly centered and at equilibrium in times where nothing is really happening. There's not disruption. You're fairly centered. And so if you're George Soros and this is you're probably thinking something like, well, look, I have $1 billion. What are the political systems where my money works supposed to look like? And how much money does a guy like me give to these systems? Maybe I have some really strong norms and values that I really want to work into. But how much of that can I actually pursue, and how much do I sacrifice for that? And if you really want to be nefarious and talk about the money being the money, you can call me naive or whatever you want, but whatever, life is what it is. If you really want to be nefarious and talk about the money, George Soros doesn't need something there every 5 minutes because he's George Soros. George Soros and Andrew Carnegie, guys like this, they needed stuff to be there when they needed stuff to be there. Just like Elon Musk. Elon Musk didn't need a goddamn penny from anyone except investors when he started Tesla and SpaceX. He didn't need a penny from anyone except when he started PayPal. And when PayPal was ready to grow, he needed a free internet. He needed open internet. He needed monetary regulations to not go outside of banks. He just needed eBay to be eBay. He made billions of dollars doing this. Billions of dollars. George Soros, this is why I think globalist is an extension of, like, I just don't understand it. I don't mean to be offensive, but do you have facts? I don't know if you guys are arguing or whatever. Sorry. Yeah. So I think, if it is my opinion about globalists and global finance and financiers, like the big problems people face, like this happened just a couple years ago, right? This happened just 2 years ago, I think. Like Silicon Valley Bank invested in a bunch of 30-year treasury notes, usually a pretty safe debt instrument. It returns you some money. You can usually sell it off and liquidate it at like the right risk ratio and get like the same thing out of it. You're maybe, it's like inflation +1 or something, right? It's a very secure thing. And like, this is what billionaires care about, is that, if you are invested in this investment bank that services the most fast growing companies in Silicon Valley, in the US, these global tech companies, and you invest in all these banknotes that you can't back up now, that's a really bad thing. That's a really bad thing. Yeah. And so this is when I think we have a different opinion. When I think of like a globalist, what I think of is typically, these really influential people who want specific things, bigger asks than most people sometimes, but more often than not, they're a political participant just like anyone else. When you give them power, when you give them a name, you give them that power. I choose not to do that. The second apocalypse. Let me get back to talking about the Archangel Michael. The Archangel Michael. Yeah, it's crazy. I know there's the sort of like third power. I don't know. I'm gonna end the stream. I'm gonna end the stream, guys. Actually, I appreciate it, chat. You guys were lifesavers. Thanks for hanging out. I hope I was able to entertain, inform, educate, any of that stuff. If you want to hit like and subscribe, that's very exciting. That's cool. Yeah, again, Francisco, if you're talking about POTUS, Obama, it is President Obama was getting pegged and fucked by Michelle. It isn't just Obama. It is President Obama. Yeah, and Iran. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. Yeah, Iran's a great place. I wonder what my political science brain would be like if I got a degree in Iran. I would love to meet my version, the version of myself living in Iran. I bet there's somebody who just loves stories, who loves being able to play with big ideas and sort of break them down, deconstruct them, reconstruct them, sort of see something and be like, oh shit, I totally didn't understand that, and now I do. Like, I'd love to meet that person. I would love to have people love to meet that person instead of having carrots and sticks. I would love for that to happen, actually. I would love for that. I'd love for the craziest two people in the Pentagon and IRGC, myself and my peer, the four of us could get lunch and we could say, look, we could have a conversation. We could lay things out. We could lay things out for the Ayatollah. We could lay things out for President Trump. We could see if we're even talking to the right people, and we could have a great time. We could have a great time.